Welcome to another episode of the Adultish Podcast. You can like, listen, comment, share, and subscribe to Adultish on most streaming platforms. You can also find Adultish on Twitter at AdultishP0DCAST. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of the Adultish Podcast. As always, it is your host, Afiya, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mr. Vincent Bernard. Say hello to the world, Vincent, as we give you a round of applause.
Hello, beautiful people. How art thou?
We are well and tired.
And we are well and tired, yes. Aren't we, though?
We are.
We both woke up.
Yes.
You texted me at 9:30 this morning.
I didn't mean to, but I had to.
I know you had to. I get up at 11. Both of us have like sore throats.
Yes.
I'm like, girl, you know, energy's kind of low, but I'm going to come through. Because I know once I start walking and once we start talking.
You start feeling it.
I'll get up and I'll be fine. So, and here we are.
Right.
Here,
I woke up like at 7 something this morning because I was binging Big Mouth last night.
Right.
And passed out not once but twice. And I was kind of mad that I even passed out during Big Mouth. But I passed out during, I think, episode 4. Went to sleep, got up, tried to start it again, and then watched like a couple more episodes and then passed out again. Woke up at like 7 something this morning and I was like, I need to finish this show.
Yes, you so, Big Mouth.
Yeah, I was up at 7 something watching Big Mouth. And then I was like, let me text Vinny real quick before I do anything else today.
Right.
Because I was like,
that. Because I was going to hit you up anyway, but like, hey girl, so
yes,
around this time would be good. Like, let me know what you're doing. Because we agreed for Sunday to meet up and hang out, catch up and do what we do. Because this week was just hectic. Yeah. But that's for another conversation that we'll get to.
Yes. Because it was just a lot. Like, I wanted, and then I had to text you and then like run downstairs to make sure that I can use the laundry because my brother-in-law, like, he loves hijacking the washer and dryer on Sundays. So I was like, bet, I'm up. It's 9 something. Let me run downstairs, throw my laundry in real quick, come back upstairs, text Vincent, make sure that he knows, hey, just remember, we said we was going to work out today. That's who we are. And then when you text me that you weren't feeling well, I was like, shit, because I woke up this morning feeling like a slight sore throat. And I was like, I'm so gross. But then I thought, well, once I start cleaning and cooking,
then it'll be good. Yeah.
It'll go away a little bit.
I just want to preface. My response was prefaced with, my energy's a little low.
It'll
be good. So if I'm not the usual Vinny, then this is the reason why.
Absolutely.
But I'm obviously
and it's
the usual
okay.
Vinny.
We can take a break and be under the weather sometimes.
That's
you don't
right.
have to be like full energy all the time.
I know.
Speaking of full energy and energies draining, all that other good shit.
Psy vampires and things of that. Human beings who drain you. So today,
yes, take it away.
We are talking about it's an adulting and dating episode, related episode in which we're talking about when you date someone and you're in a relationship with someone. And you also being in a relationship with their family.
Yes.
And how do you navigate when the family is highly dysfunctional and you're dealing with psychological disorders? Like it's quite long-winded, but I do think it's something.
It is something to touch on.
To talk about. And I like when we do dating-related conversations that really are talking about things that maybe people don't have the vocabulary for.
Yes.
And they could be experiencing, but not quite sure
how.
Right. Like why they feel certain ways at times that may be good and maybe mostly bad, So I think it's important to kind of to talk about this.
Absolutely.
Because a friend of mine is going through some things, right? And they're in a situation where they're happy. They're a happy couple, but one in the couple is, how do I put this? I'm trying to put it in a way where I don't expose anybody's stories in case.
Okay, so let's put instead of saying like person A and B, let's put faux names.
Okay, all right, faux names. So then we'll go with Damien and Paul.
Okay, Damien and Paul. Yes.
Okay. So Paul's family is highly dysfunctional. Okay. Right? And so now some may listen and say, well, define dysfunction. It's
a lot.
It's a lot, right? It's a lot. And the thing is, if you've ever been the child of someone who suffers from personality disorder, like narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, I'm not a therapist, but I really, really am fascinated by these kind of stuff, by this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking about actually going back to school to study this. Another conversation. But yeah,
adulting in school. Another conversation,
school, right?
Yes.
But like, so Dayman is in a situation we were talking about the other day. And it was me, him, and a couple of people. And he was just kind of downloading about how much time he spends talking with Paul about
Paul's
the dysfunction
family.
of his yeah. And I think what Damien was trying to say is that he feels at times that they don't, it's not a them anymore. Like it's them and everybody else. It's me, you, Dupree, and all the family.
Exactly.
And it becomes a really toxic environment, because he was saying that there'll be moments where they're having a good time, and then he'll just know immediately that Paul is bothered by something.
Yes.
That something is going through Paul's head that is probably part of his conditioning and part of his structure and the family dynamic that's haunting him. And I know he had mentioned that Paul, his partner, often has to tell himself or quiet those voices that create those insecurities that are those childhood scars. You know? Because the thing is our parents really have ways of fucking us up, even though they don't mean to.
Yep.
And it's like, if you are a person who suffers from bipolar disorder, or you have a personality disorder, I'll say that, because I'm about to get nerdy.
Get into it.
Bipolar is a mood disorder, borderline, narcissistic, those are personality disorders. So there's differences there. One is purely the brain and chemistry, mood. The other is conditioning and environmental.
Yes.
And social. So those are deeply ingrained in a way that's, you can't medicate.
Yes.
There was this show that I loved was called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And
yes.
I love that show. That show, oh my God, Afiya, if you...
I've watched the first few seasons.
Oh my God, so you saw, good.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm talking...
Miss Rachel,
perfect.
yes.
I am so happy. Okay, good. So, I have goosebumps now. And because you're gonna get it. In season 3 of that show, she discovered that she had borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
She talked to her therapist. When you get diagnosed for personality disorder, they do these tests and they ask you these questions. And there are 9 answers to those questions. And I believe if you have 5, then you're a borderline.
Borderline.
I think she had on 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But what was so great about it was they really showed you what happens in the mind and the emotions of that kind of personality. What she said that I thought was so powerful was she said, this whole time I thought I suffered from anxiety and bipolar disorder. Now I find out that those diagnoses were wrong and that I'm a borderline. So what that means is I don't have bipolar. So she said, I have a personality disorder. So that means I don't have it. I am it. So it's like, I don't have bipolar. I am borderline. You feel me?
Yes.
I am a narcissist.
It's not something that can be medicated. It's something that's just, it's internal.
Yes.
It's ingrained.
Yes. You have to talk through that shit.
Yeah.
You have to actually learn things.
You have to relearn.
To be able to cope. Right. So this poor Damien is dealing with this guy, Paul, who has a family of all personality disorders diagnosed.
Damn.
And, so... And Damien was at his wit's end this night. Like, he just was kind of like vomiting all this information. And we were kind of gagging because we didn't quite realize how that plays out internally and what it does to you. And one of the people in the family is like a total side vamp, if you will, just drains and
just
drains
draining.
and drains. And he actually let us read some of the text messages that was
Lord.
screenshot from Paul.
From Paul's family, yeah.
When I tell you, it was like a labyrinth of crazy. Girl, like total, like
just batshit crazy.
And batshit, like one example was she uses a lowercase for Paul's name, so it'll be lowercase p. So that's how she'll start the conversation.
Now pause.
Pause.
For some people who are trying to figure out why this even makes sense.
Break it down, girl. Take it, please.
We know, right, in grammar, right, what we're taught as children, as adults, as people, in grammar, in writing, you capitalize the name of a person, place, or thing.
A thing, always.
Always.
Yes.
So, for someone to put your name in lowercase,
yes,
it is to diminish,
yes,
right? The agency, diminish the fact that you are a person, place, or thing.
Yes.
To minimize it, to degrade it.
Yes.
Okay? It is a symbolic way of saying you do not mean as much.
Yes.
Okay? I am belittling you by putting your name in a lower case.
Exactly.
I do not have enough respect for you to respect that you should be capitalized.
Fucking men. And this is why Afiya is my girl, because that is exactly what it's about. And I peep that.
That is a way of her sticking it to him.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not that important. Mm-hmm. I don't respect you that much to capitalize the P in your name.
Exactly. And exactly. These a whole list of screenshots, and it was every time the name was used, it would be lowercase. And Paul is a sweet guy. Like, we've hung out a few times, and he's a guy that you just want to love him. You want to hug him. You want to talk to him. So it's like when I think about this happening to him, I really feel bad for him because he's such a good guy. He treats Damien really well and makes Damien really happy. But Damien hates seeing him be believed this way. But he's also coming out of that shell. Paul, and he's like fighting back. Yes, he's getting his power and strength back. Yes. So his family members are now like really trying to get their claws on him because he's the subject that they feed off of. He's the most successful one. He's the smartest one. They feed off him. They're always trying to put him in his place. So anyway, I say all of this to say that he's trying to figure out navigating all that. And like, what do you do when you're dating someone that you love, but they're tethered to such dysfunction that not only affects them, affects you?
Yeah.
Like how does one navigate that? How do you go through that? Like, how does one build the strength to be able to support that? And I want to have the answers for it, but I don't. I'm like, talking it out.
I feel like in those situations, so to be personal, if I may, and I'm gonna give like a good example. I hope it's a good example. But so with me and my ex,
yes,
I was kind of that person, right? Not to say that I come from a dysfunctional family or anything like that, but I was the person that if I had an issue, an argument or something with anybody in my family, first thing I would do is like call my ex to just vent and debrief and just go, like, this person did something to me and I'm so mad, right? And I think in doing that, having, again, hindsight, seeing myself doing that, I realized that it was not a good thing for me to do.
Gotcha.
Because that downloading of pain, anger, whatever it is, it can turn into a cancer.
Yes.
And that cancer could then infect your relationship with the other person.
Right.
So in the situation with Damien and Paul, I feel like with Paul kind of like bringing Damien into that family dysfunction, it takes the attention off of the relationship that Damien and Paul are building with each other or have built with each other. And it's kind of like turning their relationship from being about them to being about Damien being a shelter for Paul from his family. And that is not good because that doesn't put the relationship, again, on being about their bond. Their bond ultimately starts becoming a bond between Damien being support for Paul in his family versus them supporting one another and leaning on each other and building a loving relationship. It brings the animosity of Paul's relationship with his family in there, and that infects. It absolutely affects. And the reason why I say I bring that back to my own personal experiences, I remember like in the earlier stages of me dating my ex-husband, my mother was not a fan of him. Right. He was much older than me. He lived on his own. And again, with a parent who is very used to, being around her kids and watching her children, with her two eldest daughters leaving the nest and being their own thing and starting their own families and stuff. I was the only one who still wasn't doing that. And so she still had this kind of like ideology on how a person should date and, and what's the right way to date, and Caribbean and conventional upbringing, blah, blah, blah. So she used to have